Hello Internet, and welcome back to my reviews of the X-Men movies leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine. Last time we covered Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and now we've made it up to the second entry in the X-Men film series, X2 X-Men United, or just X2. Released on May 2nd, 2003, it is a direct sequel to the 2000 blockbuster X-Men. Your favorite mutants are back, as well as some newcomers like Nightcrawler, played by Alan Cumming. This character was supposed to be a prominent member of the X-Men, but he did not return for X-Men The Last Stand. However, he did make an appearance in X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. Then we have Lady Deathstrike. Not Deathstroke, mind you, Deathstrike. A one-off villain who goes up against Wolverine in the climax of the movie. And then we have a major X-Men antagonist, William Stryker, a sadistic asshole hell-bent on ridding the world of mutants. William Stryker is played by Brian Cox in this movie, and he will later be portrayed by Danny Huston in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and Josh Hellman in X-Men Days of Future Past and X-Men Apocalypse. And then we have Aaron Stanford as Pyro, a minor X-Men antagonist. Pyro is a firebender. Aaron Stanford would later appear as Pyro in X-Men The Last Stand, as well as Deadpool and Wolverine. Bryan Singer returns to direct X2, but due to him directing Superman Returns in 2006, he was replaced by one of the biggest pieces of shit in Hollywood, Brett Ratner, for X-Men The Last Stand. Bryan Singer wouldn't return to directing the X-Men films until X-Men Days of Future Past and X-Men Apocalypse. As always, this video will contain spoilers to X2 X-Men United, so if you have not seen it yet, please click away from this video and put it on. But if you have seen it, enjoy listening to me give my thoughts on the second entry in a franchise spanning 20 years, from 2000 with the first X-Men to 2020 with the New Mutants. This is X2 X-Men United. The movie starts off with Nightcrawler attacking the White House while being brainwashed. He was trying to attack the President of the United States, who for some reason is not George W. Bush. So we got John F. Kennedy in X-Men First Class, and Richard Nixon in X-Men Days of Future Past. And we have a fictional president in X2, X-Men The Last Stand, and Dark Phoenix. Now the idea of a fictional president is very intriguing, as it avoids ties with real-world politics. I don't think any comic book fans want to hear Donald Trump this or Joe Biden that, so let's move on. Turns out that Nightcrawler is being brainwashed by William Stryker to attack the president, all while Mozart plays in the background. Because nothing says epic action scene than with classical music in the background. That's like taking the hallway fight in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and swapping out No Sleep Till Brooklyn with Vivaldi's Winter. This exact same piece was used in an epic action scene in John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, but classical music has no copyright and can be used in just about anything, from action scenes to an emotional kiss scene to any funny scene in a comedy, or even a heartbreaking scene when a character dies on screen. The possibilities are endless. Nightcrawler can teleport from one location to the other, pretty much apparating from the Harry Potter series. His attack on the president stirs up anti-mutant feelings. Now these movies have a very political message when it comes to the public's views on mutants. It's been like that in the original X-Men comics, the 90s X-Men cartoon, and even X-Men 97. I'm not sure how Stan Lee came up with the idea of including political themes against mutants in the X-Men comics, but it's very effective here. Cut to our very own Logan, played once again by Hugh Jackman. He's exploring Alkali Lake where he finds an abandoned military facility where mutants were experimented on. That's where his memories slowly come back to him after being hit with a bad case of amnesia, following being shot in the fucking head by an adamantium bullet at the very end of X-Men Origins Wolverine. He's there to find clues about his past, but he finds nothing, so he goes back to the X-Men mansion. The young mutants at Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters go on a field trip to a museum, where Jean Grey is slowly losing control of her mutant abilities, and Donut Lord starts to become very concerned about her. Again, I'll shift between calling him Cyclops and calling him Donut Lord, because hi, it's James Marsden, and 95% of the videos on this channel have to do with Sonic the Hedgehog. And one thing that Professor Xavier does is freeze time so that the humans freeze and the mutants are unaffected. This is shown when Pyro and Iceman show off their powers. Also, we see Jubilee in this movie, but she doesn't play a big role in this movie, like she does in the X-Men cartoon in X-Men 97. The same can be said about Gambit. Gambit plays a huge role in the X-Men cartoon in X-Men 97, but he only has a small role in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Now that is just sad if you ask me, mon ami. Professor Xavier even tells Logan off for smoking a cigar in the mansion. One thing I forgot to mention in my review of the first X-Men movie is that Logan often smokes cigars in most movies, but apparently, his healing factors also apply to the dangers of drinking and smoking. Hence why he had to drink from a glass bottle of Dr. Pepper chilled by our very own Iceman, since the school didn't have any beer on the premises. Oh yes, who doesn't love an X-Men movie sponsored by Dr. Pepper? That's like having a villain dressed in a dollar store Spider-Man costume getting crushed to death by a Pepsi sign in Madam Web. I shit you not! That actually happens at the very end of Madam Web. But hey, at least I don't have to go to the bar in my Sonic the Hedgehog bathrobe to drink an excessive amount of alcohol to forget bad movies. I'll be doing that with X-Men Origins Wolverine, Dark Phoenix, and the New Mutants. Now, I often show images of my Wolf OC wearing a blue bathrobe in these film reviews because A, I look handsome in it, B, I often wear it every morning, C, I just find bathrobes in general to be comfortable to wear. I also have a maroon bathrobe that I wear every so often, but enough about that. Enter Colonel William Stryker, a dickhead who hates mutants with a passion. He gets approval to attack the school from the president as later on, he sends a bunch of men to capture young mutants and bring them to the base at Alkali Lake. Stryker learns about the school from an imprisoned Magneto, played once again by Ian McKellen. And we also see Mystique, played once again by Rebecca Romijn, impersonating Senator Kelly, who died in the previous film. Stryker has a special mind control serum that he uses on mutants to do his bidding, and he used it on Nightcrawler, and he also later on uses it on Cyclops. Plus he uses it on Magneto to get information out of him about the school, and Cerebro. And speaking of Cerebro, Xavier is using it to look for the mutant responsible for attacking the president, and he sends Storm and Jean to look for him. But before that, Wolverine asks Xavier to look into his mind for clues about his past, but he does not have the answer to everything. Plus, Wolverine has to look after the young mutants, while Xavier has important business to take care of, involving him and Cyclops going to Magneto for answers as to who's responsible for the attack on the president. But Magneto reveals to them that he was not involved in the attack. But then, a trap is sprung, and Xavier and Cyclops are captured by Stryker, all because Magneto told Stryker everything about Cerebro and the school. Meanwhile, Storm and Jean find Nightcrawler in a church, where he willingly comes with them, and it is revealed that there is a scar on the back of his neck, showing that the attack on the president was all on Stryker. And Nightcrawler spends the rest of the movie being a good guy and allying with the X-Men. Meanwhile, Mystique breaks Magneto out of prison by injecting a security guard with something that puts too much iron in his blood. And after Logan enjoys a nice glass bottle of Dr. Pepper with Iceman, who is still awake while the other young mutants are fast asleep, a raid on the mansion ordered by Stryker takes place, and the mutants have to fight for their lives as they try to evacuate the school. And during this attack on the school, Logan begins to get deja vu when Stryker reverses him as Wolverine, as he has answers to Logan's past. So he and Colossus get most of the mutants out alive, but 6 mutant children get captured. And so, Logan, Rogue, Iceman, and Pyro then hit the road and head to Boston to meet up with Jean and Storm. Well, would you look at that! A Massachusetts native talking about a comic book movie with a scene that takes place in his home state. Well, I'll be damned! And apparently, Iceman comes from Boston, so they stop at his family's place. So the deal with Bobby's family here is that they are under the impression that Bobby is at a boarding school for gifted individuals, and Logan is a teacher at the school. But Bobby then confesses to his parents that he is a mutant, and that he has the power to turn matter into ice. But then, Bobby's asshole brother calls the cops, and has them surrounding the house, until Pyro fights them off with all his fury, showing that he is one of the most dangerous mutants in the world, and that nobody should fuck with him. But before he has the chance to kill anyone, Rogue uses her powers to drain his mutant abilities. Now, one thing I don't like about Rogue in these movies is that she's not fleshed out. She always needs saving, she's an angsty teen, she's whiny, and she's nothing like her comic or cartoon counterpart. And she doesn't say sugar every 12 seconds. I could easily say the same about Gambit, mon ami, but more about Gambit when it comes time for me to talk about X-Men Origins Wolverine. Meanwhile, Charles is captured by Stryker, and he is unable to use his powers due to an inhibitor so he doesn't read the minds of those who captured him. It turns out that Stryker's son is a mutant himself, who creates illusions so powerful that not even Charles Xavier himself could get past it. Stryker has a special chemical that allows him to bend mutants to his will, which is how he got Nightcrawler to try to assassinate the president at the beginning of the movie. And since this chemical isn't strong enough to work on Professor X, he brings in his son to fuck with his mind. After the attack on the Boston PD, Jean and Storm bring the Blackbird over to pick up the X-Men as they make their way to Alkali Lake. They don't technically call it the Blackbird in the movies, but for old time's sake, and to avoid making jokes about Star Wars and Sonic X, I'm just gonna go ahead and call it the Blackbird. So, while they are using the Blackbird, they are forced to land by 2 fighter jets, but Storm uses her powers to fight them off, and then, Jean unleashes the Phoenix within her to destroy one of the missiles that was shot at them by one of the fighter jets. And as soon as they get away, they have a run-in with Magneto and Mystique and they decide to form an alliance to go after Stryker. Magneto even convinces Pyro to join his side later on, after Pyro comments on his dorky-looking helmet. I don't know why, but I find it hilarious how Ian McKellen says dorky-looking helmet.
This dorky-looking helmet is the only thing that's going to protect me from the real bad guys.
That's like trying to get Sean Connery to say, bush-stepping morons like yourself who should try out reading books instead of burning them. Or getting Gilbert Gottfried to do a reading for 50 Shades of Grey. Or having Dick Van Dyke say bazinga like Sheldon Cooper often does in The Big Bang Theory. Magneto tells the other mutants that it was Stryker behind the attack on the president, that he was experimenting on mutants, which he did with Nightcrawler and Wolverine at a secret base at Alkali Lake. He plans on having Professor X use a version of Cerebro built by Stryker to target mutants and kill them. Eventually, in Logan, Charles' telepathic abilities lose control as he grows very old and his seizures wiped out every last X-Man. Now imagine if Cerebro was used in Logan, and Charles had a seizure while using it. Global extinction for both humans and mutants. Magneto also tells Logan that Stryker is the reason why he suffered from amnesia, that he was experimented on by him so that his skeleton would be entirely made of adamantium. We see this up close and personal in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Before the adamantium procedure, Wolverine's claws were pure bone, as we see in X-Men Origins Wolverine, The Wolverine, and X-Men Days of Future Past. Jean discovers by reading Nightcrawler's mind that Stryker's base is underneath a dam at Alkali Lake. That's where the X-Men are headed off to. So Mystique infiltrates the base disguised as Wolverine, allowing the other X-Men to enter the base to save Charles, and several young mutants who are captured by Stryker's men. But Charles is being controlled by Stryker's son, who takes the form of a little girl who forces him to target every mutant on the planet. While Storm and Nightcrawler rescue the young mutants, Jean has to fight off a brainwashed Cyclops, which she eventually snaps him out of the trance that he was put in. Their battle causes severe damage to the dam, and the place is about to crash down on top of them. Meanwhile, Logan finds the lab where he was experimented on by Stryker. Then he has a fight with the one-off villain who has adamantium fingernails and has the same healing abilities as him. So how does this evenly matched fight end? With Logan injecting her with liquid adamantium and killing her. Logan chases Stryker to a helicopter pad and ties him up. And then, Magneto, wearing his telepathy-blocking helmet, reverses the attack on the mutants and has Mystique disguise herself as Stryker's son to have him go after humans instead of mutants. Magneto and Mystique escape from the base, with Pyro joining him and leaving the X-Men behind. But then, Nightcrawler teleports Storm into Cerebro, and she creates a snowstorm, thus breaking Stryker's son's concentration and freeing Charles from his trance. As the dam collapses, the X-Men book it out of there, leaving Stryker to die. But unfortunately, the Blackbird's power fails, and they have no way to get out of there alive as the floodwater closes in on them. So then, Jean exits the Blackbird and sacrifices herself to get the X-Men to safety. She is swept away by the flood. But that's not the last we see of Famke Janssen as Jean Grey, as she is reborn as the Phoenix in X-Men The Last Stand. The X-Men then make it to the White House to hand the President Stryker's files on mutants, and Charles explains to him that humans and mutants must work together to build peace. As the movie ends, we hear a narration from Jean, basically repeating what Charles said at the very beginning of the first X-Men movie, as a phoenix-like figure flies above Alkali Lake. I'm giving X2 X-Men United an 8 out of 10. The action sequences are way more exciting this time around, and it has a solid storyline. However, this will all go to shit with X-Men The Last Stand, which I will talk about next. I like the new additions to the cast, like Pyro and Nightcrawler. I just really wish we would have seen more of Nightcrawler in the X-Men movies, because he did not return in X-Men The Last Stand, and we wouldn't be seeing him again until X-Men Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. This film expanded upon the cinematic world of the X-Men by introducing new threats in the form of William Stryker, a straight-up douchebag who wants all mutants to be eradicated by any means necessary. He would later become a major X-Men antagonist. So not only do the X-Men have to deal with Magneto, but also humans who are very anti-mutant, and will do anything to make sure the world is rid of mutants once and for all. X2 is a fun film, and a great expansion to the X-Men lore on screen. Now that I've started the X-Men animated series, as well as the new X-Men 97, I would say that the animated series did the X-Men justice, rather than the movies. Even the best ones like First Class, Days of Future Past, and Logan to name a few. And then, along came Deadpool. This is probably one of the best we've seen of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, as his performances get better with each movie with him in it. Even the movies where he is the main character, like X-Men Origins Wolverine, The Wolverine, and Logan. The rest of the cast did great too, and it's one of my personal favorite films in the series. Stay tuned for my upcoming review of X-Men The Last Stand coming soon. Till then, I'll see you all next time.